Hey, my beautiful bitches, it's me, Fiona St. James, and welcome to another episode of Fiona's Coffee Talks. And as always, I like to start off every day with a fresh, hot, black cup of coffee. Hold the cream! I'd love to. And of course, I think of my favorite quote of the century by Oscar Wilde, which says, "Life is too important to be taken seriously, so let's lighten up, folks, because you know what, in a minute, we ain't going to be here anyway, so may as well enjoy it, right?" Anywho, you can see from my setup that today's episode is Halloween, yay! You know, I think of Halloween in New York City way back when, and when all of the clubs were in existence and how much fun it was. So I was thinking, like, what is my favorite Halloween story? And you know what? It's kind of hard to really pick one because they were all so magical. So I want this to be more about like Halloween in general, like what it was back then. When I say back then, I mean like, you know, I started dressing up in '87. So like the late '80s, '90s, even like, you know, the first 10 years of 2000, it was like you have all of these clubs that were in existence, Palladium, Roxy, Trax, Tunnel, you know, and they would all always have these big bashes. But it was also like, you know, back then, it seemed like every weekend was Halloween, especially because, you know, had just started dressing up. And so, you know, now it is 39,000 years later. But back then it was, you know, it was something that I was doing a lot. But my favorite Halloween was 1995. Suzanne Barsh threw her party at Palladium. She used to do like the last Thursday of every month at the Copa, which was like Halloween every month. It was incredible. But this particular year, I think the reason why that's one of my favorites is because it was sort of like a two for one for me. Because I had this client that I had already been seeing for a couple of years. And this particular client, friend turned me on to him and she was like, "Girl, I got this client and he wants to see someone dressed as Marilyn Monroe." And that's who I had already been doing for a number of years. So I would like go see him like with the Marilyn wig, 7-year itch dress, and I had already been seeing him for years. And you know, the sad part about it was that he was so like hot, like beautiful, nice face, nice body, big old schlong, but we never did anything because like we would get naked, but he was such like a bit of a drunk, and really all he really wanted was someone to talk to. So suddenly I became like his therapist, which I was like, seriously? I'm going through all of this dressing up and I ain't even getting any? I was like, that's kind of fucked up, but it was okay because, you know, it was lucrative. And for me, it was just wonderful that I was able to play the therapist for him. You know, in hindsight, I'm like, did I have to go through all of that? You know, dressing up. But yeah, because he compensated me well. I mean, and he was paying me a lot of money and then would tip me. And so that particular Halloween, he was staying at the Paramount. So I did what I usually do, dressed up, went there. He did what he usually did, which would be talk and then pass out. So like I'd be there for like an hour and I'd try to like wake him up and then finally I would just leave. So I left his room. He had this beautiful suite, I remember. Left the room and then went to the hotel bar, which at the time, the hotel bar at the Paramount, that was a scene in itself. And because it was Halloween, there I was dressed in drag and meeting all these fabulous people. Then I went from there and went to Palladium. And that particular Palladium that year was so great because I bumped into everyone that I knew. Even people that I didn't know were going to necessarily be there, like that was the spot to be that year. And a dear friend of mine, Leather Mary, hey girl, she was like part of this fashion show that was happening that night. So she had this amazing, elaborate outfit made, and then she had like a cute little matching, like separate little leotard. And she was like, "Girl, put this on." So I put that on. So even though I wasn't technically part of the show, I was like part of her little entourage, and it was so great. Bumped into my girlfriend Lorenz. Hey, Horta, I'm gonna I have a picture from that night of he and I, which is actually really good. But when you look at us, I'm like, girl, how stoned were we? So I think I might add that picture just, you know, because I think it's a great shot, and it kind of, you could see how happy we were. And, you know, and those were the times, like back then, it was such an amazing time. So I don't know if there was anything specific that happened oh, yes, there is. because that night, all of my shit ends up in bed. So I did end up meeting this really hot, hunky man who was visiting from like San Francisco or something, staying at a hotel. And, of course, I went back home with him. And then, the next day, walk of shame, addressed as Marilyn Monroe. I was like, ooh, Lord. And back then you didn't have Lyft or Uber. You had to like fucking stand on the corner, put your thumb up and try to get a cab. So I don't even think I had my shades. Anyway, so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So yeah, those of you who, used to, or maybe were at that party or used to go to all of these clubs, leave your comments. Let's reminisce of the good old times. I'm not saying that like shit isn't fierce nowadays, but I kind of feel like it's a different mindset or a different feel in the air. Like back then there was always all of this like love in the air, and my legs, I don't mind telling you, but I digress. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little old and I don't go out as much, but I know when I used to go out back then, honey, it was some amazing shit. So, all right, thank you so much for being here. I love doing these videos and I love that you guys join me. So hope everyone has an amazing weekend. Be safe, be careful, dress up, have fun, drink a little, do whatever you want. Just be safe. Bye guys, love you, bye.